Hello, English 11. Sorry you have to see this video instead of us doing a live session today. I have a medical issue I need to deal with today, so I'm having a procedure done. It's very minor, no big deal, but I need to have that be my focus today, and I'm taking a sick day today and can't be with you live today. So today's your first day to read Into the Wild, and as we talked about in our live class earlier this week. Um, we're not going to be reading this book in order from chapter 1 to chapter 16 or 17. We're not going to read it in that order. We are going to read it in an order that makes sense to understand the story of Chris McCandless. And the first thing to understand about Chris McCandless is what kind of kid was he? What kind of youth was he? To help us understand who he was as a person, to break down kind of his personality traits, things like that, to understand why he would make the sacrifices he made by going to Alaska and taking the risks that he took, to get us hopefully a window into understanding him as a person first, prior to us just looking at him and his adventures of getting to Alaska. So the first things we're going to be reading are chapters 11 and 12 in the book. For those of you that have the book, it's right around page 100. You'll find it. For those of you that are using the link, the PDF link I sent, that it's right around page 72, I believe. So there's going to be one task for you to do in Blackboard. When you go into your second or third or fourth or seventh hour tab, you are going to see Into the Wild, Childhood and Pre-Alaskan Stories. You're going to want to open up that document. It's a 3-page document. And I'm going to want you, if you're a face-to-face student, I'm going to want you to print it off so you can handwrite some ideas in there. If you're a virtual student, I'm going to want you to make a digital copy of it. And then you can eventually share with me your copy. Face-to-face student, you're eventually going to turn it in. And here's the first page of that document. It says Into the Wild, Childhood and Pre-Alaskan Formative Thinking Sheets. The first sheet we're going to focus on are some stories from his childhood that helps us understand the type of person he is. I've identified for you in the sheet the different stories for you that we're going to be reading about and thinking about. And what I want you to do are two things. Number one, summarize the gist of what the story is about. And then number two, what this says about Chris McCandless as a person. I did two of them for you. I did the first one for you and the last one for you. And the reason why I did this is because these two stories give us a window into why Chris McCandless did what he did. In the first particular story, it's hinted at that, well, Walt, his father, was a very abusive father, abusive to his mother, abusive to his kids, and it has later come out as a result of the popularity of this book that his abuse, his like anger, or his nervous energy, the stressful existence. Just reading some of the words I wrote here that he created in the household was very undersold in the book because they would try to keep that a family secret, but really it was a pretty significant deal. So the Walt's anger, his temper, his intensity kind of drove Chris away from the family, and that's what I kind of wrote about right here. The other story down here, Walt's secret. One thing that Chris McCandless discovered was, so Walt was previously married, which there are many families that have multiple families, divorces, things like that. But what Chris found out one summer was that Walt was continuing to see his first wife while he was married to Chris's mother, his second wife. And Walt was still fathering children with his first wife. And so that was an act of betrayal for Chris. And so that really drove a wedge between Chris and his father. And understanding that act of betrayal and understanding that kind of abusive, stressful existence that Walt created for the family, we get a window into understanding why Chris McCandless wanted to live a more independent life and flee his family and flee adult authority figures because he didn't trust them. He rather would trust himself and take risks because he knew that he wouldn't take on anything more than he could handle. All right, so that gives us kind of hopefully the origin and genesis of who Chris McCandless was and why he decided to do what he eventually did. But let's dive into different stories about him as a child and as a teenager and as a very, very young adult to understand the kind of person he was. So I've identified for you 8 different stories. 7 different stories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 different stories where I want you to read those stories in the book and understand not only what happened in the story, but what it reveals about Chris McCandless. So let's do this. Read the chapters 11 and 12. Check out these stories. There will be other stories you'll read, but these are the ones I think reveal the most about Chris McCandless. And then be ready to share these stories as a class in our next full face-to-face class, whether that be a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And if you're in the upper half of the alphabet, be ready for me to call out on you to share what you wrote on for the first 4 stories. And if you're in the lower half of the alphabet, be ready for me to call any one of you out to share to the class the last 3 stories, what you wrote, just so we can study this a little bit collectively when I see you next on Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay, so this is your task today. Read chapters 11 and 12, all of Chris McCandless's, I guess, kind of childhood background stories, and we'll take it from there. If you have any questions, feel free to WebEx me or email me so that way I can help you out on Monday, but I'm not going to be available today, Friday, to help you. But let's start reading the book and take it from there. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.